started. So good evening, and thank you all for coming to the Ward 4 City Hall Community Meeting. My name is Victoria McGregor. I am the meeting coordinator. If this is your first time attending a City Hall community meeting, these are meant to be a gateway between City Hall and the public. Staff are here with us tonight and will be presenting on ongoing work both in Ward 4 and citywide. After each presentation, we'll take a few questions initially. If we don't get to your question at first, please hold on to it because we have Q&A time dedicated for the end of all presentations. I do want to note that tonight's meeting is being recorded. All ward meeting recordings will be available at the conclusion of our spring season, which is after May 22nd. And then I'm now going to go into some quick updates for you. I'm sorry, before I do that, I did want to invite Councillor Klingon up to do a quick hello.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all in person. This is, I'm glad the mayor has decided to keep these quarterly meetings in place. It's a great way for all of us to get together. I think we may even have some new folks here since the redistricting last in 2021. I've acquired some new streets in Ward 4, so if you're new here, welcome. I'm just really excited to be here, excited to hear the different updates. I know the concerns remain, the rats, the shootings, safety. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what the chief has to say. I've been working with him around the summertime and making sure we have added patrols. And just very excited about this new playground out here. If you haven't checked it out, that we got built finally. There's a ribbon cutting, I don't know if that's gonna be announced, but next week. And 299 Broadway it's in a holding pattern, but it's in a good place, and we're hoping that that'll pick back up. Right now, it's just in part of a process where the developer has to put all their financials together or whatnot. So yeah, these are really exciting times. Happy to be running again to represent you all, and hope you are all in good health and have a great evening. And I'll be here listening and here to take questions afterwards. So great to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I'll be doing some quick updates for you. If you prefer email for follow-up questions or to give feedback on tonight, please email cm@somervillemay.gov and we'll direct your comment to the appropriate department. We also have multiple city departments here tonight who have left out flyers or doing ongoing surveys. Please feel free to say hello to them, pick up some reading material at your leisure. So the first update, earlier this year, Somerville announced its first ever participatory budgeting process, which will allocate $1 million in funds for a variety of city improvement projects. The deadline to submit ideas is this Saturday, May 20th. You can visit somervillemay.gov/PB, and there's an interactive map which has ideas that have already been submitted, and you're welcome to submit feedback there. Ideas will be reviewed by budget delegate volunteers and presented for Somerville residents to vote on later this fall. You can apply to become a budget delegate online, and the deadline to apply is also this Saturday, May 20th. Over multiple weeks, the city and the Somerville Arts Council launched the next phase of the Cultural Capacity Plan, which included a series of community conversations to discuss how we can help arts and culture thrive in Somerville. We encourage you to attend the citywide forum on May 23rd at the Armory Building to learn more about themes that resonated across these conversations. And to learn more about the plan as a whole, you can visit somervilleartscouncil.org/cultural capacity. May is Preservation Month and events are well underway. The Somerville Historic Preservation Commission is hosting a series of docent tours, talks, and walks you can attend. On this slide, you'll find a few of those events that are happening this week, but all can be found on the city calendar. A reminder that the city has multiple spaces dedicated to teens, including including the Edgerly Teen Center, Powerhouse, and the Teen Room at the Somerville Public Library's Central Branch. All are free and have regular schedules with a variety of programming for all interests. Schedules are listed here on this slide. A few election reminders. The table on the left includes several key dates for the upcoming 2023 election season, including deadlines to apply to vote by mail, tentative early voting dates, and election dates. Now is a great time to review your voting plan to make sure all your information is up to date, and we also encourage you to fill out the annual census if you haven't already. For all elections-related information, you can visit the city website at somervillema.gov/elections. Somerville's Anti-Displacement Task Force is expanding and is now accepting applications for new members to serve on one of 3 committees focused on residential, small business, and cultural displacement. Applications are being accepted until all seats are filled, and you can learn more by using the QR code on this slide, which is also in the printed out versions. The next 2 slides are a quick list of recent affordable housing investments. Again, please feel free to grab a copy of the slides to bring home and dig in further. The city has fully committed all $77.5 million of Somerville's American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds. Not all allocations have been announced yet, but will be soon. On the next slide, you'll find a list highlighting recent ARPA investments. If you'd like to learn more about ARPA, you can visit somervillema.gov/ARPA. From roadway and sidewalk improvements to sewers and storm drains, efforts to maintain, improve, and modernize our city's infrastructure are underway across the city through Somerville's Department of Infrastructure and Asset Management. On the construction page, you can sign up for the monthly construction newsletter, which relaunched as of last month. And you can also sign up to receive the monthly email update on work across the city on the construction page, which is somervillema.gov/construction. We recently received an update from the MBTA on the opening of the community path. The MBTA contractor is actively working on the remaining construction, which includes fencing, lighting, and grading. Work is scheduled to be completed in June of 2023. And to keep up to date on all things community path, you can please use the QR code on this slide. After more than a year of community engagement, research, and analysis, the city has released its first ever citywide bicycle network plan. This plan is an 88-mile network, including a mixture of protected bike facilities, off-street paths, and traffic-calmed backstreet neighborway routes to be installed over the next 20 years. The city will continue to hold public engagement processes before installing any facilities noted on the plan, and the plan itself will be reevaluated every 5 years. All future engagement processes will be announced through the city's main communication channels. And to look at and review the bike plan yourself, you can visit somervillema.gov/bike network. So with warmer weather coming, there's a lot going on in the city, but there's one event I did want to highlight that's coming up relatively soon. The Somerville Memorial Day Parade is back for the first time since 2016. It will be held on Sunday, May 28th, and will step off at noon from Davis Square. The city's annual remembrance ceremony will immediately follow at the cemetery. You can keep up to date with all things City of Somerville by subscribing to our weekly newsletter. You can do this by using the QR code on this slide or by visiting somervillema.gov/subscribe. On this page, you'll also find a list of other departments that have their own newsletters. We welcome you to subscribe to any and all that interest you. And for those who prefer social media, the city actively posts on 3 main social feeds: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow us there to get city updates as well. That concludes our quick updates portion. Thank you, and now I'd like to welcome Mayor Ballantyne to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us this evening. So I thought it would be fun to get to know who else is in the room. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, and I would ask you to raise your hand. So if this is your first community meeting, please raise your hand. Wonderful. Thank you for coming. Welcome. If you've lived in Somerville 1 year or less, please raise your hand. Welcome. 2 years or less, raise your hand. 5 years or less. 10 years or less. 15 years or less. 20 years or less. 25 or less. Wow. 30 or less. Over 30. Wonderful. If you've lived here your entire life, raise your hand. Awesome. Welcome. Thank you, Vincent, under the table there. Pardon? Oh, playing games. Okay. So I wanted you to know, first of all, I do want to also mention there's a few elected officials in the office. Councillor Christine Strezzo at large. Councillor Jake Wilson at large. Did I miss anybody? No. Let me know if you see anybody else who comes in. So I wanted to let you know that I hear from the community every day. I hear from you either by phone calls, by emails, by meeting on the sidewalks, multiple ways. I also hear indirectly from you through 311 calls. Just from January 1 until today, we have received nearly 40,000 calls or emails to 311. And here's a sampling of some of the things that people are talking to us about. Parking permits, mattress pickups, pothole reports, Council on Aging, rat sightings. And what you share with me, whether it's directly or indirectly, is really important to me. I want you to know that I'm listening. I take your words seriously. I bring them to meetings where we discuss program planning, policy development, budget discussions. And so I'd like to share with you look into how we balance the different needs, priorities, and requests that we get all from you. So on this slide, so what are the usual role of municipal government? Some of the core functions. Many people or municipalities and towns focus only on the core functions. And this ranges from water and sewer, sidewalk repairs, road repairs, police, fire, schools, and so forth. And in some towns and local governments, it stops there. That's because the municipality believes that's what needs to be done, or because their finances don't allow them to do more. However, here in Somerville, we believe we can and should do more. And I want to stress here that not all communities believe this is what they should do, but here in Somerville, we do. We started off with engaging you all through a strategic planning process called Summer Vision, first in 2010 and then in around 2020. And that's why, in addition to the basics, like streets, lighting, and trash pickups, we also invest in housing programs, climate change, Vision Zero, pollinator action plan, and so much more. I could actually fill this entire slide with all the current projects that we are on until it's completely covered. But because we are always here in Somerville aspiring to do more. So what I'd like to share with you is we spend every day focusing on both the quality core services and initiatives that invest in people, our quality of life, and social progress. We spend a lot of time thinking creatively so we can do more with what we have, not less. And that's how we get the depth and breadth of what the city does and has expanded in recent years. So doing more, I just want to give you a snapshot over the last 10 years. Back 10 years ago, our operating budget was $185 million. Today, it's over $308 million. 10 years ago, we had over 24 departments. Today, we have over 60 departments. Next slide, please. We are limited, though, or we face some challenges to do this growth. We are limited in how much money we can raise. Our operating budget cannot be increased more than 2.5% year over year. That's called through the state law Proposition 2.5, plus new growth. Our state aid in Massachusetts has been declining. And at the same time, we have really ambitious plans where we have a very can-do attitude. You can see that with the work that we're trying to do on Somerville, or that we are doing in Somerville Ave, that we have a new Somerville High School, and the development that has progressed over in Assembly Row. And this just gives you a snapshot financially of where our revenue has come. There's been a decline in state aid. We've seen a shift with more reliance on property tax revenue. Back in 2007, 50% of our revenues came from property tax and 30% from state aid. But now that's shifted. And fortunately for residents, that includes that we've increased our commercial property tax, and that's been growing, especially in the last 3 years, and that's been by design here in Somerville. On this side, if you look at it, in the last 5 years, we've added record property values, which allows the city to fund new programs and services. If you notice the orange bars, that's the commercial growth that our strategic plan, known as Summer Vision, had envisioned when our residents got together to try to plan and chart our future. It allows us now to invest more in our community. This brought in new revenue streams that helps us invest in our community without burdening our residents. You don't see this in every community. In fact, Somerville had the third most new growth in the Commonwealth in the last fiscal year. The biggest impact we can have on the people who live here now is diversifying our revenue, and we can do that substantially with new commercial growth. It creates jobs for people. It allows us to do more for our community. So on this next slide, how are we overcoming challenges to do more? For one, we've been investing in our community by drawing outside investment to diversify our tax revenue. We're also in a good financial position because we carefully manage our revenues. You know, I want to thank our financial staff, the council, my predecessor, for establishing healthy reserves. And we're able to use those now in support of residents and also to garner lower borrowing rates. And finally, another strength we have are you, our residents. You're our brain trust. You challenge us, you share with us, you give data with us, and you always try to help us think and do more. In specifically also is you've shown yourself to be really compassionate and caring about your neighbors and the people who live here, and that, you know, our investments also uplift people. On this next slide is a sampling of some of those investments we've made. We now have an Office of Housing Stability, a Department of Racial and Social Justice, an Office of Immigrant Affairs, all of which have grown recently because of the demand. We also have a Field Maintenance Division, an Office of Emergency Management, separate grounds and Building and Grounds Division, divisions of Mobility, Public Space and Urban Forestry, Web Services, and more. And here on the next slide are some ways that we are able to deliver on our progressive values. We have other tools and methods that allow us to do more. One, we put in linkage fees and zoning requirements. Linkage fees are attached to large developments. So if there's a large housing development that is going in, commercial development going in, the developer is required to put a certain dollar value per square foot into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There's also a jobs linkage, which on large developments, again, in certain districts in the city, it's attached to how big the development is per square footage. That also puts money into a pot of money. We also have inclusionary zoning requirements that mandate 20% of new housing units with 4 or more units are deemed affordable. That allows us to deliver more affordable housing to our community. And also, Somerville aggressively pursues federal and state and private grants. And our state and congressional delegation work hard to also direct resources to us. On this next slide, here are a few ways that add up in one area like housing. We have over 700 affordable housing units in the pipeline. We're projecting over $20 million going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the linkage in the next that I was talking about earlier, that's linked to development in the next 4 to 5 years. We got over $6 million in federal grants, and in the last 8 months, we've invested $37 million into other housing investments. And one other way, our zoning, that a tool we've been able to use in order to do more is a zoning set-aside called ACE, which stands for Arts and Creative Enterprises. I know that it's a mouthful, but what it does is it requires larger developments in certain zoning districts to donate 5% of their new space for arts and creative uses. And that's a huge game changer. We expect that in the next 4 to 5 years, based on the pipeline of projects that we have, that over 530,000 square feet of new arts and creative enterprise space will be available. This will help artists and makers continue to thrive here and avoid displacement. It will also open up a whole new possibility for the arts and the cultural opportunities for our public too. This gain was made possible by the city making small investments in staff and changing the zoning. Our staff are also a huge reason that we've been able to advance all the projects that we have here in the city of Somerville. It really enables us to do so much more. And what I'd like is if our staff could please stand up now and maybe say your first name and what department you're from. And I'm gonna start over on the left here and just go around the room. Chief, I think you're up.
John Green, Fire Chief. Chip Dunn, Traffic Police Department.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Can you guys yell a little louder?
Adrian Pomeroy, Americans with Disabilities Act Coordinator within Racial.
Colin Ziegler, Special Services Department.
Nicholas Salerno, Elections Department.
Emily Hutchings, Planning Preservation and Zoning Department.
Brian Hipsway, Director of Engineering.
Phelan Howell, Council on Aging.
Art Francis, Public Space Report.
And Nancy at Economic Development.
Adam Linsky, Mobility Division.
Newspaper Communications.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Combined with their willingness, our willingness to try new things, talking to you who are our brain trust, we're able to do more and get more out of every dollar. I can't tell you how having a dedicated, talented staff is vital to conceiving, creating, implementing new products based on your feedback. So I'm going to move back to the core services, and here's an example of a new idea that's getting us more for our dollar. We are working to get more roads repaved using a new technique called partial paving. This means we pave only the travel lane and not the parking lane. By doing this, we can increase the number of streets that are paved. Cambridge is also using this approach. I know some of you might not be so happy with this method, but it helps us stretch our resources so we can do more. We're still evaluating the approach, so please, staff are here, share your feedback. And also, in order to be efficient and cost-effective, we try to schedule paving, coordinate that with the underground utility work and plans that the utilities have. If we hold off until we get the utilities plan, their dig plans, it shifts the cost to the utilities who are required to repave after they've dug up our streets. Another example of staff delivering innovative services is the City of Somerville was the first in hiring a rat czar, otherwise known as our environmental health coordinator, some years back. You might have heard recently that New York City, about a month ago, hired their very first rat czar. And I just want to say, Colin, please, if you wouldn't mind sharing your hand. A favorite among our community members. He's also here today. He launched the phase 1 of the Smart Box program pilot last year, and we spoke about that last fall. As a quick update, it has been a success. There's been over 1,000 captures. Phase 2 of the program has been expanded to Union Square and Lincoln Park, and we'll also explore new methods of rodent control that does not use rat poison and how to make them more available, rat poison. And we also want to make available to the public options in a program called the Residential Assistance Program. It's an unusual, but it's an effective approach. You don't find this in most communities, but we found that if you invest in helping private property owners where rodents are active, it can help the whole neighborhood. This year alone, we've had nearly 300 requests for joining this assistance program, and we're exploring other expansion of the rodent control focused positions in the coming budget. Another core service that we've been focused on is our legacy infrastructure challenges. We have an aging water and sewer system under our streets, and numerous old buildings need significant repair. And we have a network of roads originally been built for cars, not for people on foot or bikes who we need to keep safe. Somerville is not alone in needing to catch up. Like most of the country, our infrastructure and buildings have suffered from decades of underinvestment and deferred maintenance. My administration is committed to breaking this mold of underinvestment in renovation, repair, and deferred maintenance. But it's going to take time. It's going to take strong fiscal management to right that ship. So we are working with purpose to tackle this issue through thoughtful and sustained investment and planning. So we can't always look backwards. We also need, at our legacy challenges, we also need to look forward. And there's a new layer to any infrastructure update, which is our commitment to sustainability. We now must include planning for climate resiliency and impacts to our investments. Reducing flooding impacts through gray and green infrastructure, for example, is essential to keeping and protecting our homes and businesses. We are taking on this monumental challenge via two core approaches: strategic planning and investment, and a new approach to maintenance. So on the planning side, we recently undertook a comprehensive effort to carefully chart out new investments in our schools, in our fire stations, below ground services, city buildings, and more. If you want more information on it, you can find it on the city's website, somervillema.gov/CIP. It stands for Capital Investment Plan. While we tackle the problems of the past and plan for the future, the city, however, is also taking a thoughtful and innovative look at how much needed improvement is required right now. We know that major renovation and construction take time. We need city infrastructures to serve the public safely while work is planned and completed. So our capital investment team, capital projects team, is currently stress testing equipment, assessing vulnerabilities, starting with our schools. Somerville has not been doing this for the past 20 years. We started this year. And on this next slide, this is just a quick list of infrastructure projects currently underway or in active development, planning, or review. So we have Somerville Ave, we have the Spring Hill Sewer separation project underway, Somerville Ave at Poplar Street, the pump station construction, Powderhouse Boulevard and Alewife Parkway reconstruction of the intersection, Pearl Street reconstruction. We just submitted letters of intent to the Mass School Building Authority for the Brown and the Winter School to begin the process of either renovation or rebuilding. We also just released a bike network plan, which also accelerates investments in Vision Zero infrastructure. And finally, there's also the Highland Ave sewer separation and streetscape design. But as we do this core service work, we're also in our fiscal resources. I want to close with a brief overview of additional work we are doing in Somerville to invest in our people. And here's just a brief look at the recent successes. We've upped our climate action plan and launched an update to this plan this week. Last year in the budget, or I should say this current fiscal year, I added and gave a historic 10% increase for our schools, which was very important to me. And now it's serving our youth in multiple ways. We've issued a comprehensive survey to inform our ADA planning. We've developed new protocols and opened our first overnight emergency warming center for our unhoused population this winter. We expanded LGBTQ+ services. We've added services to language justice, racial and social justice, and in-person outreach in the community. And we've pushed out funds to small businesses to help them recover from the pandemic. And there's a few other things coming up. We're ready to open a day center for the unhoused person. We're preparing to launch a universal basic income pilot. We're moving towards opening Massachusetts' first supervised consumption site to prevent overdoses. We're launching a new gender wage gap effort to take on wage disparities and hold low-income women, that hold low-income women and their families down. We've supported strategic planning for the Women's Commission, and we're launching a strategic planning for multilingual services as well. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening. I'm happy to take a couple of questions now, or as you know, I'm going to be here the whole evening. We can take them at the end at the Q&A.
Any questions for Mayor?
Okay. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you for the presentation. I am so sorry I arrived late. I went to City Hall instead of coming down to Keeley School. I did not read the event description closely enough. So if you did cover this, my apologies. But as someone who lives in the Gilman Square area, one of the things that I and my neighbors are concerned about is the placement of a really large sewage tank near the Holman's building site. The concern that we have is that there is a massive plot of land there that could be activated for services for our community, for us and our neighbors, or other people throughout the city, or that site could become commercial activity or residences for folks who are looking for a place to live right next to that brand new Gilman Square T stop. The concern that I have with my neighbors is that if we pursue putting a large sewage tank beneath the ground there, having to study how that's going to work, and then having to figure out exactly how to make it happen with engineering and all the other departments involved, it'll take many years. It's going to foreclose the possibility of anything happening at that site. And in the meantime, we have a bunch of neighbors who do a lot of work in engineering and green infrastructure who really want to see that particular area and the larger neighborhood in the city as a whole really led by more affordable, small-scale interventions with bioswales or biocache basins, small-scale sorts of green infrastructure projects that we did them throughout the entire city, especially on Spring Hill and other areas downhill where we get a lot of flooding in Gilman Square. That could really mitigate the need for that tank altogether. So what I'm really hoping to hear is how can we address that concern from residents of Gilman Square, but also residents throughout the city who want to see more innovative approaches to stormwater runoff and just the flooding we all deal with experience.
So thank you for the question. I just want to say it is not my understanding that there's going to be a sewage tank underneath there. I think, is Brian here? Yeah, so Brian can talk more about the details, but it's the idea, so there's been no final plan on the square, right? No. Yeah, I'll let you speak to the details. So community process is really important to me. I know many of the residents in Gilman Square, and I have said that they will be part of the solution. I just want a correction out there that there has never been talk of a sewage water tank. There has been talk at some point of overflow water, but it was not a sewage water tank. So just as a cut, but you all will be in the process, involved in the process, in the community process of what will happen in that square. But I will pass it over to Brian to maybe give a little bit more information of the status of the project.
The key point here is that we don't like the idea of a sewage tank either. We would much prefer to do a stormwater tank, and right now the sewers, both storm and sanitary sewers don't really facilitate either well. So we are currently studying which is the best way to go there to resolve flooding in the square. But one thing that we have committed to both the community, because this is an important concern to the community, and also economic development, is that we can find another way. We are not going to get in the way of a good design and a good project at the Homan site. We have the plan that you're referring to, the tank that you're referring to, was really just a big picture study of the entire community, just trying to see what is the magnitude of solutions that we need to apply. And we are planning and working towards minimizing the scale and scope of gray infrastructure, tanks and the like, by utilizing green stormwater infrastructure. This is something that is important to us. We've been doing it in all of our major projects in the city for the past almost decade. And we also know that the state and the federal government agencies that do regulate our stormwater and sanitary sewage see that as a very effective solution as well. So I think we're on the same page as you, and we're working in that same direction.
Thank you. And next up is,
Next up is our Racial and Social Justice Department Director, Denise Cavalier.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. Feels kind of weird to do it this way. We are very excited to share with everyone some of the updates from the Department of Racial and Social Justice. As everyone knows, we have finalized and closed the survey for the Public Safety for All study that we are doing. And so I am very honored to say that the PSFA survey has received one of the highest response rates in Somerville's surveying history and is one of the most representative surveys Somerville has ever conducted due to the great and intentional outreach efforts of the RSJ team. And so I am very lucky to work with such amazing people. Yes, they do deserve. What I wanted to share with you today in regards to the study, we are still in the analysis stage of all of the responses that we received from our constituents, but we did want to share with you a tidbit, which is question 13 on the survey, which asked our constituents, which of the following are your top 5 concerns regarding public safety in your neighborhood? And so citywide, the top 5 complaints were as follows. Number 1, people violating traffic rules and traffic safety. Number 2, theft and burglaries, including car theft, shoplifting, stealing packages, bike theft, and pickpocketing. Number 3, housing security. Number 4, gun violence. Number 5, illegal drug activity. Specifically for Ward 4, the top 5 concerns were number 1, gun violence. Number 2, theft and burglaries, including car theft, shoplifting, stealing packages, bike theft, and pickpocketing. Number 3, violent crime. Number 4, illegal drug activity. And number 5, people violating traffic rules / traffic safety. So, this is just a small preview of some of the responses that we are receiving from our constituents in regards to public safety in the city. And I want to remind everyone that we were super intentional about making this about as many areas as possible regarding public safety and not just policing. So to that end, the part of what's going to happen with this information is that it will be given to our Public Safety for All Task Force, which has already been chosen, including constituents who apply to be a part of the task force. The selection committee has made their selection of the constituents. We are in the final stages of onboarding everyone, and in the next few weeks, we do expect to have our very first meeting with the task force, which will begin their orientation and their training. We also have the Civilian Oversight Task Force, which has already convened in their first meeting and is already beginning their work. We are very excited to be working with the 14 members of the Civilian Oversight Task Force. As you know, part of their work is consisting of focusing on defining and creating recommendations for a sustainable civilian oversight board for the city of Somerville. This includes deciding on recommendations for its powers, duties, authority, and composition, and more. Our anti-violence working group will finalize its opportunity for constituents to apply to be a part of this working group this upcoming Friday, the 19th. This is an especially important working group that we have put together because as RSJ department values, we are capturing the lived experiences of the different groups that live in our city and addressing the roots of violence, in particular gun violence, domestic violence, and gang violence. We understand that there is no cookie cutter solution to these situations, and that is why bringing in the broad voices of our constituents and their experiences is very important in meeting their needs of the different communities and how they experience Somerville. And we are especially passionate about being able to take into consideration the voices into what will eventually become solutions and programs and policy, either adjustments or modifications or new policies. So the RSJ Youth League, which is a one-year program for our youth in the city, has finalized their study on displacement and gentrification experience of our youth in the city. They presented at the Harvard Graduate School of Education 2 weeks ago their research and how displacement and gentrification is affecting the youth. Our state department will be hosting an event to officially give the youth the opportunity to present their findings both to our constituents and the school department community. After this study and presentation for them is complete, they are moving on to creating what will officially become the RSJ Youth Cabinet. And this will be a permanent cabinet that will allow youth a seat at the table and will allow them to give voice to the youth and what is concerning them, what are the experiences that they have in our city, and give them the opportunity to affect change through policy, programming, and recommendations as well. All three of our commissions, the Human Rights Commissions, the Somerville Commission for Women, and the Somerville Commission for Persons with Disabilities, has open seats. They will remain open until filled, so we welcome everyone to please apply for membership. We also have our ADA coordinator present here tonight. We welcome you to come and scan the QR code if you need a hard copy. She also has those available in various languages. We are very much actively seeking as many constituents as possible to fill out the ADA survey, community survey. This will help inform our update of the ADA transition plan for the city of Somerville. And with that, I welcome any questions.
It's for Denise.
Thank you.
Next up is Somerville Police Department.
Good evening. Just by show of hands, I know the mayor asked, but how many people in the room first meeting? Show of hands? Okay, so most people have been into at least one other meeting. My name is Charlie Femino, Chief of Police. I'm accompanied by Captain Donovan behind me. Captain Donovan is the patrol commander. He's usually the one that is the eyes and ears for me. If there's an issue in the city, particular ward, he brings it to my attention during our command staff meetings. And at that point, we decide on a resolution or a deployment plan. I also have Officer Bork, who's in the back of the room, who's highly disappointed that she can't come up and give a 10-minute speech. But if we have time, I'll allow you to come up. What I usually do is give a snapshot of citywide crime as well as ward specific. In reference to citywide crime is up 7% over the year and 20% over a 2-year period. This 12 months have seen the highest crime rate in the last 5 years, but keep in mind that Somerville is still lower than some of our other jurisdictions and cities and towns around us as a matter of rising crime. Most of that crime, if not all of it, over the 1 year, is due to an elevation in property crime, motor vehicle theft, theft of motor vehicle parts, and some of it's seasonal, package thefts during the holiday season. So we've seen not so much a rise in crimes against persons, but most of that increase is due to the property crime. Ward 4 specific. And I know that you might have some questions, and I'm going to talk a little bit about gun violence in the next slide, but Ward 4 specific is up 25% over a year and 30% over 2 years. Over that 1 year, again, the increases not only in Ward 4, but across the city is property crimes such as burglary, package thefts, and larcenies. There was a small increase in Ward 4 for robberies and commercial burglaries. So one asks, what do we do about it from our end, from the police department? We initiated some years ago a park, walk, and talk program, but we've put more emphasis now on the officers getting out of their cars in their respective wards. They spend time speaking with citizens and business owners, exchanging information with them as to what's going on in their particular ward, in their area. And in a lot of times, in many cases, we get information from people who are in the city, exchanging information with the officers. What we do with that information, the officers at roll call through our crime analysis unit receive bulletins. Those bulletins are earmarked for specific locations within each ward as to what's happening in those wards. So the officers know that they should be spending more time in specific areas where those crimes are occurring at times. So the identification of crime trends, the identification of crime patterns is important for us, because what we're trying to do is to be a more crime data-driven department versus just roaming on the streets as a reactive police department. I know gun violence is a topic in the city, specifically in East Somerville, more so than other areas of the city. As you can see from this slide, we've had, since 2020, 49 confirmed shooting incidents, fired shots, over 325 rounds in those incidents. 12 individuals have been injured, one suffering a fatality or homicide in West Somerville. Again, though, I want to be clear that our department, criminal investigations divisions, work with other cities and towns that have similar type problems. We all are familiar with gang affiliation and gang turfs in the cities of Somerville, Cambridge, Everett, Malden. And so there is a task force that meets once a month to exchange information as to what's happening with those incidents. The sharing of information often leads to locating, identifying, locating, and charging individuals. As you can see, 30 individuals have been charged, and there's still ongoing investigations where people who have been identified are pending prosecution. Together, local, state, federal, the agencies I just referred to, we've confiscated so far 40 possessed firearms, illegally possessed firearms. Now those numbers might have gone up a few based on when the slide was made, but this is some of the work that we do from internally within the Department for Criminal Investigation purposes. As far as prevention goes, as Melina Capers has mentioned, I work very closely with the Racial and Social Justice Department. I've been meeting with her almost on a weekly basis since she came on board, and we have developed and we have been ongoing in developing the framework for many of those commissions and task force that you saw in her slide presentation. And so all of what she talked about we've been involved with, we've had a voice in, and we support as we go forward with those commissions and task force. But this summer we're trying to do several basketball camps with the kids. We're trying to increase our park walk and talks in areas where it's either requested or where we know where kids are going to be congregated during the summer months. As you know, during the summer months, the warmer months, more kids congregate. That's usually when the shooting incidents start to increase, an uptick in shooting incidents. We also have, as I talked about, the task force. So that task force that I referred to that's meeting monthly, our detective bureau, our captain of criminal investigations, we converse with Cambridge PD almost on a weekly basis in addition to the monthly meetings, because a lot of the individuals that are involved in that type of crime it's cross-jurisdictional from Cambridge, Somerville, or from Somerville, Everett to Malden. So we're always constantly communicating. Next slide. Touching on domestic violence and sexual assault, there have been 39 fewer incidents reported in 2022. There's been more incidents reported since 2020, which was an abnormally low year based on the pandemic for reporting purposes. But sexual assaults, there have been 5 more incidents compared to 2022, comparing to 2021, and 17 compared to, again, in 2020, the pandemic year, which was a low reporting year. The key, I'm not going to read this whole slide, but the key to take away from here is that we have sexual assault investigators who are certified and trained specifically in sexual assault. We have a family services unit with a victim witness advocate, civilian victim witness advocate who can be notified. So whether it's yourself or somebody that you know might be either a survivor or a victim of domestic violence, you can call the department, talk to one of those, or you can do it anonymously. You don't have to actually report a crime or move forward for prosecution purposes with the crime. If you want resources, you can ask for them. We work closely with the district attorney's office as well as the court, the district attorney's down at the district court. So if I have handouts at the back of the room in 3 different languages. If you're interested, the next slide will show a number of resources that are available, and that slide is available. That handout is available at the back of the room also. I'll take a couple of questions now if you have any, and I'll also be here after the meeting.
I'm wondering what, if anything, you can tell us about just your philosophy or typical practice, I don't want to say typical, but practice in terms of notifying the community when something bad happens. So when the shooting happened on Broadway recently, we were up for a walk. So we walked just all through the neighborhood and didn't understand that it wasn't a traffic accident until we started noticing police officers walking slowly through the neighborhood. And I apologize if we talked about this at the meeting that happened afterwards, we weren't there, but I was checking my email, checking Twitter, is there anything being told to us about this, and couldn't find anything, which I can understand. I'm just wondering, what can we expect? Like, was a notification sent? Like, I'm having a hard time convincing the notification system that I live in Ward 4 as opposed to Ward 1, where I lived many years ago. Did I just not get it? Do you send them? Like, just what can we expect? This is not a complaint.
So if the question has to do with what notifications, if any, we send out for major crimes that occur in the city so that the citizens are notified in more real time, correct? So that's understood. If you can envision a scene like that where there's multiple shootings and multiple people involved, in the real moment, we have to get the information first, and we also make a notification internally. We should be doing a better job of sending out a message, and we've talked about that debriefing, not just from the police internally, but so from the city administration. So we have worked on that. We've published it on our website, the Somerville Police website, as well as sending out text messages and emails. But to your point, every system needs improvement, and that's one that I agree that we're working on trying to get more information out in real time by way of social media, Twitter, et cetera.
Can I just beg you to use the official communication vehicles? Like, if you can't communicate, I understand. You have to do your jobs, but can I beg you to use those official Somerville channels and not have us wondering if we should chase around and get on Facebook or what, yeah.
I'm going to have, Devin, yeah.
If I could actually add one thing, at the meeting we had post that shooting on Broadway, one of the takeaways is a notification system. well, we gotta do better at that. That's why we have these meetings, and it's great feedback for us. We're not perfect, and we learn as well as anyone else. One of the things we caution against, though, sending information immediate is because of crowds. We can't, we have to weigh public safety as well as investigative avenues as well. So, it's kind of like that fine line we walk, like when do we notify where it's not going to interfere with investigations. So, we have to do better at it, but there is a reason, even if we do better in the future, you may say, hey, that happened 2 hours ago, why am I getting it now? And that's the reason why.
And just as a last note, also, depending, every situation is going to be different in real time. If there's an immediate threat that's ongoing, the information is going to be released sooner. In this particular case, we already knew that the shooting suspects had fled the scene, had fled down on Main Street into the Medford area. So we already knew that information when we arrived, based on information that we received from witnesses at the scene and other information that we received. So, that does play into it too. If there's no immediate threat versus a future threat, that comes into play. So I think I saw one more hand.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go.
Hi, I'm wondering if you have any information on the clearance for the 49 shootings. How many have been resolved? Did you identify the shooters or arrests?
So the individuals that were identified and brought into prosecution, is that what you're asking, what the clearance rate is?
Yeah.
So when I talk clearance, the incident, it occurs, someone's identified, located, and charged. In my mind, that's clear. Whether they're found guilty or not is another level. And I don't have that information off the top of my head. Some of them are still pending. And as you know, in the criminal justice system, it takes sometimes 2 years for a case to come up. And there are pending cases that are going before the grand jury as we speak here tonight. So it's hard to put a number on the actual clearances.
I can just address that quickly. So it's a great question. It's one that myself and Councilor at-large Wilson have asked, and we've put in council order requests for that data right through to the DA's office to conviction. So hopefully that'll end up getting that information back in Public Health and Public Safety Committee. At some point it'll be available to everybody to see. So we're still waiting on that.
Two final questions, one here.
Hi, Chief. Thank you for coming this evening. First of all, I want to thank Sullivan Police Department for what they're doing, what they're trying. So kudos to the department. The question I have is, since the Assembly Square Mall is being developed, how much has it added to your incidence on calls to add to what we normally usually have?
So specific numbers I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd be glad to take your information and I can have our crime analysts run that. I can tell you to general knowledge that most of the incidents that are occurring down at the Assembly Row are property type crimes and larcenies, car breaks, shoplifting, etc.
Correct. I am thank you very much.
Yeah. But if you want, I'll get your information after the meeting, and I can try to get you a specific number, but I just don't have that at the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, and thank you to
We just have one final question.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, we'll do.
You have a question over there.
Denim jacket.
I know that Councilor Clingan was trying to get a number set up. I live in Ward 4, been in Ward 4 for the better part of 24 years, in the same block, 2 different buildings. My question is, I know things are developing quickly, I know what crime is like, but we should have an alert system where somebody within, from the scene to the direct office to administration, sends out a citywide alert stating, stay out of this area. I have heard from people here, I have heard from people in my neighborhood, and parents where their kids were walking home. And there was no notification sent out. And I know for a fact, other cities, other towns across this country use it to keep people away. There is a shooting between, please stay away. Something that is just basically immediate that says, stay away. A citywide alert, he has been trying to set up a number to get this done, and I know you have to concentrate on what's happening, but something's got to be done, because one of my neighbors, her kid was out there coming home with one of their teenage friends, and they almost got caught.
No, I understand the concern. I heard many of those people in the days following that incident with the same concern, and we internally with the city administration have discussed ways to do better. So we have discussed with the mayoral administration, with our communications department. We are trying. I'll be here after the meeting.
Thank you, Chief. Well, we're going to move forward with presentations. Next up is our Public Space and Urban Forestry Department.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Thanks for coming out tonight, and I just wanted to say thanks to the police department for those guys have a challenging job, and we really need to salute them. My name is Arne Franzen. I'm a project manager with the Department of Public Space and Urban Forestry, and I'll start my presentation in a minute. But Councilor Klingon had mentioned the opening of the Healy Schoolyard and Field, and I wanted to say yes. In fact, we are. We've got a slide showing that. We are opening that space with a ribbon cutting with the mayor on Friday morning, the 26th at 9 o'clock. And we do have a flyer. It's on the table over here, so pick one up, share with your friends as you're leaving. Thanks very much. But again, I am a project manager with the Department of Public Space and Urban Forestry. Our department is a team of open space planners, landscape architects, project managers, and arborists. We work with the community and in partnership with the mayor's office and the departments of engineering, zoning, and mobility to create great public spaces. Our projects are, over the years there's been a multitude of projects. Typically they include parks, schoolyards, streetscapes, plazas, and our team also works with the developers. We know that there's been a lot of new development in the city, and as part of the zoning requirements within the city, those developers need to meet a green score. And so our department reviews a lot of the new developments in the city to make sure that those developers are meeting green score requirements for open space, number of trees planted, species of plantings, that sort of thing. But if we go on to right, so as part of our work and in support of all city initiatives, we believe that trees and open space are an essential part of our infrastructure and our quality of life. And as such, our team works to make the city, we were talking about it earlier, more climate resilient. And we do so by adopting green infrastructure practices in all aspects of our work. So in this slide, we've got a couple of good examples. First slide shows, the first image on the left shows trees. And so I think a lot of this is people are aware of it, but just to remind you, as we seek to increase the tree canopy in the city, we just want to recognize the critical importance of trees. In addition to providing shade and cooling, trees reduce stormwater flow, they clean the air, and they provide habitat for pollinators and wildlife. And they make people feel calmer and more connected to their community. I think that's basic. We all recognize that. We're also talking about green infrastructure in the city and the need to incorporate that. And I want to point out that in this middle slide, this is an image of green infrastructure incorporated into Lincoln Park. So these are infiltration chambers that are below the surface of Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park has 2 large fields. There's a recreation field, which is largely a soccer field, and then there's a softball field. And within Lincoln Park, there are approximately 95,000 square feet of infiltration chambers, and they store approximately over 500,000 gallons, 550,000 gallons of stormwater. What does that mean? That means, and we also have our own water well within Lincoln Park. So in terms of like bringing water into the park. And so because of that system, Lincoln Park only requires a minimal amount of city water. And with the exception of some very large storm events, there is no discharge of stormwater from Lincoln Park into the sewer sanitary system. It all gets captured by the Caltech subsurface chambers and infiltrates into the groundwater, into the soil. I also wanted to, those are standard practices within our department. We are also, we know we want more trees and open space. Oh, I'm sorry, skipped ahead, sorry. As another initiative, on the third image over here, I wanted to point out that as another initiative, we recognize that climate resilience isn't only for the benefit of humans, but also for pollinators and insects. And as the climate changes, creating habitat for native pollinators is critically important. So as a next step, working with the mayor's office, we have created a pollinator action plan advisory committee of local experts and city staff that are working to develop a plan to address pollinator habitat loss and decline of species in our region. And on the table, there's another flyer. It has a QR code. Take a look at that and download it, and you can be a part of that conversation and see how that is unfolding. Next slide. As goals for the city and our department, we want more trees and open space. That's a key part of our mission, and we are working on it. So currently, there are approximately 14,000 public-owned trees in the city. 10 years ago, the city was planting roughly 50 trees a year. Now, the city is planting over 350 new trees per year. Just huge increase. And I would say that in 2022, last year, we actually planted a total of 504 trees that included new street trees and trees within parks and open spaces. So that's tremendous. And I just want to point out though, if you're on the street and you see the new street trees that are planted, and you see those water bags that are on the street, it's important that people take some responsibility. And if you see a water bag and it's in front of your house or something, feel free to fill it. Ideally, they would be filled like about once a week, and they will help the tree to survive, especially in the drier months. And if anybody has any questions about trees in general, there is an email that you can use, trees@somervillema.gov. Take a look there. If you have questions, please submit them to our staff. We are also, the city has been working to expand our open space. And so, since 2010, we have expanded by, I think through acquisition and expansion of parks, we have developed over 20 new acres of open space in the city. And we also have initiatives in place to continue to acquire new open space. In the Summer Vision 2040 plan, we talk about increasing our acreage by nearly 100 acres. And so on the right side of this slide, you'll see the breakdown of the new open space acquisition. So, again, there was about 21 acres in 2010, and we're trying to increase it by another 100 acres. And part of that is is through new development and those zoning requirements that we're putting on developers. And so it's just, there's a lot of positive energy and movement going forward, both in terms of development of the tree canopy and new open space for the city. One of the things we're most excited about, and which is great here for Ward 4, is, next slide, is going back to the Healy Schoolyard. We are opening it on the 26th. This is a great project. It's been in the works for many years, and there's a lot of people who have been involved in it. It would take a long time to give everybody credit, but it's been a phenomenal community initiative in terms of planning and input. And I just wanted to, take a minute to recognize those people. And we'll have a chance to do that again at the ribbon cutting. But I want to, we see the Healy Schoolyard project as a transformative space, and I don't want to go into too many details, but let me just sort of like talk through some of the things that are incorporated. If you go outside, you'll see a lot of them. They're just out the door. There is the new schoolyard. There's a new soccer field. There's the replanted slope around the back side of the soccer field with new tree plantings. That field space is all native species. There's a new ADA ramp from the schoolyard down to Mystic Housing. There's a new parking lot out here that incorporates a rain garden for parking lot runoff. There's an EV charging station out there that can accommodate 2 electric vehicles, and there are new crosswalks from the top of the stairs coming up at the end of Meacham Street over to the school. So that space is opening soon. There will be work that we will continue to work on into the early summer, but by and large, that project is done, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people who have helped us with that. But within that project, like many of our other projects, we have incorporated the green infrastructure. So if you had seen the Healy Schoolyard before we started it, you would have, how many people do know the old schoolyard? It was, and I think you'd agree, it was a broken up asphalt surface with a lot of chain link fences, and maybe not the most attractive schoolyard in the city. It had, I think, at various times, either 2 or 3 trees in the schoolyard, depending on how many were surviving. So we are now going from 2 trees to 90 new trees in the schoolyard and 140 new trees overall within the space. We have a stormwater capture and infiltration system. There's a rain garden, and we've increased the permeability of the schoolyard space by 40%. And there's other things. We've got new LED lighting both on the field and throughout the space. So just wanted to again say thank you to the city and all the support we've had for that project. So on your way out, don't forget to pick up a copy of the flyer. Take a look at the Pollinator Action Plan flyer. Take a look at that QR code. And lastly, I told my friends at the Mystic River Watershed Association that I would put a flyer out here for the Mystic River Herring Run, which is this weekend. So if you want to go for a run or a canoe paddle this weekend, take a look at that flyer as well. Thanks very much. I think we've got the Mobility Division next.
Any questions for ARM before we go into mobility?
And I'll be around afterwards, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Again, my name is Kate White. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Planner for the Mobility Division.
And I'm Adam Polinsky, and I'm a Senior Planner in the Mobility Division. So for anyone who's not aware, I know we have a couple new folks in the audience. The Mobility Division is the team within the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development that deals with all the planning and sometimes implementation of projects and programs that have to do with Somerville streets. There are a couple things we wanted to highlight for you guys today. I know you've been sitting around and listening to us for a while now, so we'll try to be brief. but there is a concerted effort on the city's side to focus more and more of what we're doing on the mobility team on improving traffic safety. I know that was one of the concerns that was listed when RSJ was up here speaking earlier, and the way that we do that is by implementing traffic calming. There are a number of measures of traffic calming that you probably start to see around Somerville more and more over the last couple of years. That's things like speed bumps, raised crosswalks, curb extensions, which are pieces of concrete, that sort of jut out into the street and make it easier for pedestrians to be seen as they're crossing, and a host of other types of measures that we implement. One of the things we've been told is that while it's great that we're implementing more of this and people are generally supportive of the work we're doing, we haven't always been so great about telling people when it's coming, how it's happening, and making sure that they can weigh in on the process. One of the ways we've remedied that is by hiring Kate, who's been here for about 18 months now and has really upped our team's game when it comes to getting out into the community and talking to you all, whether it's a matter of getting input or just informing you of what's going on. One of the tools that we've developed recently is this interactive map of traffic calming. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, I recommend you to just scan that QR code there or go to that link, and you can see where we've implemented some of these traffic calming measures over the last couple of years, as well as what we have planned for 2023 and 2024. In Ward 4 specifically, we have implemented speed humps on Central Street, Sycamore Street, and Jake Street already, and we have plans to add a couple more on Fells Way West, as well as on Edgar Ave approaching the Healy School, which is something that we've heard is a concern out here particularly, and we focus a lot of our efforts on adding these measures outside of schools in particular. With that, I will turn it over to Kate.
We've also started a regular monthly newsletter, so if you're interested in anything related to transportation planning or projects or programs in the city, we encourage you to subscribe, and this goes directly to your inbox of anything around street redesign projects or anything like our Somerville Bicycle Network Plan, or also some of our free T-Pass programs, which we're excited to talk to you about tonight. So we have, next slide. 3 free T-Pass programs we're really excited to promote and share with everyone. One of those is free T-Passes for 7th through 12th graders in Somerville Public Schools. This is available all school year round, and it's unlimited subway and bus. So if you want to get in, you're going to school, but you also want to go to your doctor's appointment afterwards or your after-school job, you're now able to do that. We also have an available program for low-income parents and guardians of Somerville Public School students for the same thing, be able to take your child to school, but as well to get to needed services, to go to the grocery store. And in the last 2 weeks, we launched a low-income pass. So if you're an adult residing in Somerville, you can be eligible, and we're doing this collaboration with CAS. And so again, to make sure that you can get to jobs, appointments, and services. So you can check that out at somervillema.gov/transit benefits. If you're interested or you know of anyone that's interested, please help spread the information so we can make sure that transit is more affordable for folks. So with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Hi, I have a comment about the speed bumps. Not that I'm against the speed bumps, but just some of them are very hard to see. I know on some streets there's signs next to them, and on some they have like white paint on them. I've noticed a lot of white paint wearing off to the point where it's not visible anymore, and I'm just wondering if, I don't know, they can be bright yellow or something like that.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that question. So if anyone else didn't hear, this is about kind of the markings on speed humps. And so we've been kind of, as you see, kind of testing them out and seeing what markings are the most visible for folks. And so now our upcoming standard is going to be kind of white, kind of chevrons or kind of arrows, and then yellow, like diagonal stripes. And then at each one, there's signage placed right next to it. So that'll be the standard across Somerville for any of our speed humps. And you should see the ones that haven't been marked that way should be marked kind of like this, like late spring, early summertime. Yeah, thank you.
To request traffic calming measures in the past, when I inquired at the meetings, it was always like you have to go online and fill out a form and then get community support. And I feel like, I guess my question is there a way to make like a small suggestion? Like, Should I just email you guys, 311?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always welcome to hear any of that. So you can email transportation@somervillema.gov. You can submit a 311 request, and it could be anything that now we can't guarantee we're definitely going to we'll go install something there, but that feedback really helps inform where we're able to, maybe we'll go collect more speed data over there, or we'll be able to see we do a lot of volume counts to see are there an increase of vehicles going that way. And so we kind of take all that feedback, use that to kind of decide how we're going to go and collect all that data, and then identify priority locations or types of treatments. Right now, we have been prioritizing areas closer to where we feel our most vulnerable users, especially children near schools or parks or kind of big key destination areas where we see a lot of people walking and rolling. And so that's where our priorities are right now, but we still welcome that feedback all the time.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And before we jump off speed humps, I did just want to add that this program has expanded quite a bit in the last couple of years, and that's probably why a lot of you have seen more and more of these. So we hadn't built any speed humps outside of the ones that we built on Powder House Boulevard back in 2019. Those were the first in the city, and now last year we added over 30 speed humps, and we're continuing to expect to expand that program. So just so everyone knows, we are continuing to expect that this program will grow, and that we are hoping that the striping of them will come more quickly after they're built in the future.
Hi, my name is Wiley. I live in Ward 4. I'm a driver, a cyclist, and a pedestrian, so I'm generally in favor of traffic calming measures. But I do have some concerns about some of the curb bump outs that are installed, specifically on Temple Street, as it's created like a really, really dangerous situation for cyclists. It seems to maybe not. To me, when I bike through there now, instead of going into the bike lane where the cars have to go into, I just go into the road. So is there, once you install some of the traffic calming measures, is there follow-up? Do you look to see how they're performing? Do you look to see that they are not safety issues?
Yeah, so there is something particular about that one in that it is still not done. The markings that are going to sort of actually guide cyclists around, and so the bike lane will continue around the new medians that we installed, have not gone in yet. And so that paving is actually expected to happen in the next couple of weeks, so that entire area will get repaved. We'll put down fresh new markings, and it will be much clearer that cyclists actually should bow out to the curb, that they still have the bike lane there, and it will be much clearer to drivers as well that there's a median coming and that you are guided around that. So we do evaluate, and to answer your other question, we do evaluate these measures and are continually looking to ways to improve them. But in this particular case, we're going to wait until it's actually finished and all the final markings and signage are in place before we start that process.
Yeah, and if I could just add a little bit to that, if you go to the city's somervillema.gov/Vision 0 page, we actually put together a key performance indicators kind of presentation slide deck at the end of each year. And so in 2022, we can show you kind of the impacts of the speed humps as well as some of the pedestrian crossing islands that we put in and some of the other traffic calming features. So that's one of our kind of public facing ways to share that analysis of those impacts.
Before we take this next question for Kate and Adam, I just wanted to say we're going to go right into our general Q&A portion. So if you do have additional mobility questions, feel free, but we'll also take any questions for any of the presenters or staff that are here tonight. If I could ask presenting staff to kind of slowly make their way to the podium, just to save time on switching between questions.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I don't think I introduced myself earlier, but I'm Seth. I live on Maple Avenue. I've gone to a number of the mobility department's meetings. Kate, thanks for the outreach, and Adam, thanks for the work you've done in presenting in meetings. One of my favorite departments in the city. I've got a million questions I could probably ask you all, but the thing I think is most pressing from my end, at least, is as someone who gets around the city by walking, driving, or biking, or even taking the T, I keep coming back to the fact that the way I would prefer to get around the city is not having to rely on a car. I feel so much better when I know I can safely walk to a destination, when I can take the T somewhere, or when I can ride a bike somewhere, and knowing that that's going to be reliable and safe and efficient, because generally that makes it so it's a less congested city for the other people who do need to drive a car because they can't do anything else. The thing that has been really difficult for me is that even though I feel comfortable getting on the road and riding a bike and getting around when that's the most efficient mode of getting around, my wife isn't comfortable doing that. I know plenty of my neighbors aren't comfortable doing that. I know it's not safe for kids to get around in the city on bikes unless they go very slowly on sidewalks, and many of our sidewalks are very narrow, are not ADA compliant. I'm really concerned about how long it's going to take for us to get to having the bike network rolled out in the city, so that way we can get around the entire city and not have like a street here or a street there, or one curb cut there, or a corner that's bumped out and safer. What is it going to take for us to be able to make that happen quicker? What can we do in Somerville to make it so that way it's not a 10-year kind of plan, but maybe we can see quick builds along the way to make things safer in the interim while we do wait for hardscape projects to be completed, while we do wait for mobility and urban forestry and the police department, the fire department to all weigh in on how best to reshape our streets.
Yeah, so I think it's a couple of things that go in. We definitely have quick build options, and in the recently published Bicycle Network Plan, there's a vision for the next 20 years, and then there's a commitment to kind of if you think of it as like the bones, the kind of initial spine of the network by 2030. So it's over 7 years, kind of a commitment to a variety of quick builds, as well as what we call permanent construction, which we do in our reconstruction projects, to commit for 2030. And I don't remember the miles off the top of my head, but I'm happy to follow up with that information.
Mobility question.
Hey, quick comment on the existing bike infrastructure. It's great, more of it. We can always use more. I just have a comment on the separated bike lanes with the flexi posts. In a couple places, they're just gone. They've been trashed by the snow plows over the winter and by other vehicles, especially under both Green Line bridges, under Washington Street and under Medford Street. And if you could replace them, have your maintenance crews, it really, really makes a big difference for people cycling. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the question. Actually, you can submit that to 311, and sometimes the eyes on the street is really helpful for us in helping our crews get set up and then roll out those replacements.
I was wondering if there's any data yet on the impact of the GLX, like affecting traffic, reducing traffic, ridership numbers, and that might be broader than just road
Yeah. So that's a great question. We're really excited to get. I'll start first with the ridership data, because there's a different kind of fare collection at the new Green Line. The T acknowledged that we need to kind of think of a more comprehensive way to understand how many people are riding it. So they partner with a regional agency called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, who actually pulled together crews to go out and both do like on the ground counts, as well as doing some modeling around what are potential riderships, pulling together what they have on origin destination data, which they collect through a bunch of kind of like the taps of the cards. So sometimes they can see where that person exits later. And so we're hoping that over the next 6 or so months, we're gonna get more of that data to understand how many folks are on the train. Anecdotally, we're seeing a lot of people and already getting complaints that it's too crowded, but again, that's not hard numbers.
Yeah, and something similar for traffic data. We don't have any hard numbers yet, but we are planning on going out and collecting data for traffic, bikes, pedestrians at some of the key locations nearest to the Green Line. We also have annual bike and pedestrian counts that we do at the same locations every year, and so we're hoping that this fall will be another opportunity to get a snapshot of kind of if anything's changing.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly add, that same kind of key performance indicators presentation that we produce at the end of each year shows some trends in traffic. So again, that's that's across the whole city, but it helps us to better understand, are volumes changing, where are they changing? And actually, like, what times a day? Like, we've seen it change from peak hour to more of those kind of midday trips or even higher amounts of weekend trips by vehicle.
a 10-year-old son, and we've been biking a lot around the city. And there's a lot of areas where it doesn't seem great for him to be biking where bikes are supposed to go. There just seems to be a lot of areas where it seems simple to just swap the bike lanes to the other side of the parked cars. It'll be a lot safer for kids and a lot of people to feel more comfortable biking. I was so thrilled to see the bike network plan, and then less thrilled when I saw the end date was 2040. So yeah, same as what he said before, whatever we can do to speed this up would be fantastic. Thank you. And one more thing, when will the GLX path be opened? Bike path?
The T is sharing that they are anticipating mid-June, but again, we are waiting on confirmation from the MBTA. Sorry, I keep thinking, is something else getting?
Yeah.
I'm going to admit I feel a little silly bringing this up because there's a lot of important issues that have been discussed. But in addition to like the ribbon problem being a nuisance, I have observed over the past several years that a lot of people got dogs during the pandemic, and Foss Park has kind of become an unofficial dog park. And there's just like every single day when I go past there, there's so many dogs, and I think that people are walking their dogs down Jake Street and down, other side streets, and the amount of dog poop on the sidewalks where my husband and 2 children walk every single day to come to the school is insane. And it's all year round. And I called 311 already to say, like, what can be done about this? And the only thing that I was told is that no one's ever called about this, and we have no policy. And I think it's the responsibility of the homeowner to clean up the dog poop. But, like, if that's the case, this will just continue forever. And it's like you're dodging bullets every time you walk on the sidewalk in Ward 4. Especially kind of like near Foss Park and on Jake Street.
Yes. Yeah, but she's talking about the sidewalk. So you're talking about, excuse me, so just to repeat, you're talking about the public ways getting to, the sidewalks. Property owners should be cleaning up, dog owners are required to pick up after their dogs. I don't know if there's any more information I don't have any more information to share on that. I'm happy to look into it. Victoria can get your information, but they are required to pick up after their dogs. No, I hear you loud and clear. So the question is, how do you enforce it? I think is what you're getting to. So let me find more information on that and see possibly what's been done in the past. Okay, and share back with you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Faris, and I am almost a lifer, I should say. I am disabled, you wouldn't know it by looking at me, as a pedestrian and someone who rides the T regularly. But as a pedestrian, I have multiple families in my neighborhood, a lot of elderly, some are disabled. Some of us feel there are far and few in between crosswalks that I know this is going to take years and I know it's going to take money. But they really are not ADA compliant. Like my area is really very inaccessible sometimes. There's a lot I wrote in. I've had Jesse has tried to help I don't know how many times. But there is not enough being done for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. Some of these designs are confusing to everybody on the roadways. Where do I ride my bike? Where do I cross? Is it safe? There's bikes speeding through. cars speeding through, people on their phones crossing into the middle of the street. What does it look like in the future? Because I would love to stay in Somerville until I'm no longer, but I do not feel safe. And I'm a pretty sturdy woman, but I have tripped on sidewalks, been run down by bicyclists, and I have some great neighbors who are the best bicyclists in the world. But I don't see us working together. It's kind of it's they, them, and us. And I would like to see us all as a community realize we all need to share the sidewalks, the roadways, the crosswalks, the community path that's hopefully opening soon. But it's not very accessible as a pedestrian. I mean, I never know where to walk even with all the construction. I mean, what is the vision for pedestrians like in this city?
So thank you for the question, and we should be doing everything and as quickly as possible to make ADA improvements to our city. That's why we invested in an ADA coordinator. Adrienne Pomeroy is back there. She's been with us a little over a year, or just about a year. We have the Pedestrian Transit Advocacy Committee. I would say that we can share information back with you on that. They are also, it's a community filled committee with people of all types and interests who share their feedback and work with city staff so we can make sure that you're connected in there. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to add a little more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, your accessibility concerns and concerns about particular intersections and crosswalks being non-compliant, please, please, please put in 311s. Let us know. Adrienne Pomeroy's here as our ADA coordinator. Adrienne and I work very closely to prioritize crosswalks and sidewalks to reconstruct. We have a dedicated budget in our streets reconstruction plan every year to reconstruct sidewalks that are not meeting those compliance levels. We can't do all of them in 1 year, so we are trying to prioritize those to the ones that our constituents, and especially those who struggle getting around comfortably, that we're focusing on those locations that are going to get the most use. When it comes to intersections, I think you had also talked about crosswalks and signalizations. That is a challenge for us because there's a lot of competing interests at a traffic signal, as I'm sure you're aware. But we have a fantastic traffic engineer now, Jessica Bello, who is really going through almost every single traffic signal and trying to find the most optimum phasing so that we're maximizing both the throughput of vehicles, cyclists, but also minimizing the amount of time that pedestrians have to wait. And it's an ongoing discussion of how's the best way to do it. And really what it turns out to is every intersection is different. And so we have to look at every intersection uniquely and try to find the best compromise for that location. So I'll be here afterwards. I can try to understand more in depth of what you're referring to, but for everybody, because sidewalks are something that we all use on a daily basis. If you're having a difficulty with somewhere, please reach out to us. 311 is the best place. If it's an active construction site, construction at Somerville MA, we will try to get to it as quickly as we can or incorporate it into a project as soon as we can. Thank you.
Any final questions?
Hi, again, am Wiley, Ward 4. I live on Pearl Street next to Ed Leathers Park. Thank you, Arn. It's a beautiful park. I do also live next to the dog park at Ed Leathers Park. And as I think someone else noted, there's a lot more dogs these days than there used to be. I've had a lot of issues with noise disturbances, so much so that the city and I did enter mediation 2 years ago to try to solve some of those issues. And at this point, the city has not followed through with what they said they would during that mediation. And I'm still stuck with a lot of noise issues. It'd be nice to see some improvement there.
Thank you for sharing that. What I'd ask is that we get your information and we can talk about that and see who you were in communication with. Thank you.
Final question.
I wanted to know if Brad Rawson is here tonight because I came specifically from Clarendon Hill Towers with no 89 bus. I had to take another bus to Davis Square and wait 3/4 of an hour, and I came specifically to see Brad, so I wondered if he was actually here tonight. I don't see him.
So thank you. Brad is not here. He is at a conference, but we have two from his staff here who will be happy to talk to you directly. Okay? Thank you. No. No. Denise? No.
Okay. This isn't a question, but it's just a shout out to the 311 app, which if you haven't downloaded it yet, it's super efficient and easy to use, and you can add pictures to your comments.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of these responses are coming back to like RAS 311, mobility issues 311. Like I think Ward 4 just needs to report a lot more things.
Thank you for doing that shout out. And what it helps us do is it collects data. You know, that's the biggest thing, and we try to be efficient and be able to spread out the requests to this, or pass on directly to the department heads, hopefully to get quick responses. Thank you.
I was going to ask actually the representatives from our police department a question. Yeah, sorry about that.
Chief, can you come up here?
I can let y'all go. So one of the things that I noticed in my neighborhood, particularly on Marshall Street, is that it's a really big attraction for folks who want to drive as fast as they can in the city, because Marshall Street is one of the very few one-way streets that is completely straight. There's nothing to make a driver need to slow down except for a couple of the smaller speed humps that got poorly installed by the contractors who made a mistake with what the city was asking for last year. But in any case, I guess I was wondering about the statistics for shootings in the city, and I'm wondering about how shootings in our city also relate to, I guess I'm wondering how many of the shootings in our city that we see are the result of drive-by shootings. And the reason that I wonder about that is I know that that happened on Marshall Street. I know that there had been another one on Jackson not too long before that. And one of the things that was really astonishing to read about, at least in the city of Portland, not this coast, but the west coast of the country, is that they used traffic calming as a means to cut down on street violence, particularly with guns, but also street violence as it pertains to drivers hitting, hurting other drivers, pedestrians, property. So I guess I'm wondering what proportion of the shootings in our city are related to drive-by shootings, and to what extent is our police department speaking with mobility or perhaps other departments in the city to discuss the prospect of using traffic calming as a way of mitigating gun violence?
So I guess the bottom line question is what we are doing with other departments, specifically mobility, to use traffic calming to reduce or mitigate some of the drive-by shootings, and what proportion of our shooting incidents are drive-by shootings. I don't have exact numbers in my mind, but I can tell you from a general perspective that most of the shooting incidents have something to do with coming to or leaving by a motor vehicle. So as far as traffic calming goes and what proportion or how that's going to mitigate those types of situations, it doesn't seem like the traffic calming that is currently in the city is going to alleviate or deter the individuals coming into the city or leaving the city that are going to be involved in these shooting incidents. I'm not familiar with, off the top of my head, with the literature that's across the country. I can get your information. Before I leave, I'll give you my card and we can discuss it a little further. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to close the meeting with that. Thank you all for taking the time and spending your evening with us. Thank you, Mayor and city staff, for your work in putting this meeting together. Again, this recording will be on the website after the conclusion of the series, after we have sent it. If you have any additional questions or feedback, we do have that email, cm@somerville.gov. Thank you and have a great day.